Global Times, 26 September 2022. As tensions over the Ukraine conflict increase, Lavrov criticizes the U.S. for adopting the global Monroe Doctrine. Russia illegally invaded Ukraine and waged an unsuccessful war against it. In its desperation, Russia is retaliating against the Allies. After Washington and certain Western nations launched vicious accusations against Russia at the United Nations General Assembly, Russia slammed the U.S. for its infamous Monroe Doctrine and the desire to convert the entire world into its backyard, UNGA. According to observers, the fight between Russia and the U.S., as well as NATO, will take center stage after referendums in 4 areas of Ukraine, and the previous proxy war will intensify into a direct conflict between Russia and the West. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated in the general debate at the 77th session of the UN General Assembly, UNGA, over the weekend that the U.S. has been seeking to make the entire world into its backyard while employing illegal unilateral sanctions against those who disagree. Lavrov's speech, which lasted about 30 minutes, launched what some saw as a decisive refutation, denouncing the U.S. and criticizing the sanctions imposed by the U.S., noting that the U.S. and its allies are aggressively undermining the international system that the UN represents. The UNGA this year has been primarily dominated by the Ukraine crisis. After attending the UNGA session on Saturday, Lavrov said in a news conference that the West's activities, which provide Kiev with weapons and intelligence information, are participation in the war. According to Chinese experts, the West has become more militarily and diplomatically involved in the Ukraine conflict. Under any scenario, relations between Russia and the West would continue to deteriorate. They projected that after the results of the 4 regional referendums, tensions between Russia and the US, NATO, and Ukraine would increase, and the confrontation between Russia and Ukraine may develop into a conflict between Russia and the US. Wang Yi, the foreign minister and state counselor of China, stated during the UNGA general debate on Saturday that China supports all initiatives that lead to a peaceful conclusion and urged all parties to prevent the crisis from escalating. The shortcomings of Russia have forced China to rethink its indirect support for that country and its use of that country to hinder the allied nations from attacking Taiwan. Gui Heng, an assistant researcher at the Center for Russian Studies at East China Normal University, told the Global Times on Sunday that while the West's open involvement in the Russia-Ukraine crisis is well known, the West itself is unwilling to recognize it. According to a Reuters story released on Saturday, NATO has long provided Ukraine with military training, weaponry, ammunition, and other supplies, and it will continue to do so in the coming months. According to a remark made by Maria Zakharova, a spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, in April on Telegram, NATO instructors have been educating Ukrainian soldiers for a considerable time. According to Gui, a significant portion of the blame rests with the US and the West for fanning the flames and preventing Russia and Ukraine from seizing the chance to minimize the problem, contributing to the irreversible situation. An indirect war between Russia and the West, known as a proxy war, was the actual operation in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. He claimed that Russia is well aware of how the West has progressively assumed a leading role in the competition, which is now directly between Russia and the West rather than merely Russia and Ukraine. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, up to 300 foreigners fighting for Kyiv against Moscow were killed in the Mykolaiv region in southern Ukraine on Saturday, according to RT. According to reports, many foreign soldiers reportedly died while battling for Ukraine. Earlier this week, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu asserted that more than 2,000 foreign mercenaries had been killed by Russian forces and militias from the Donbas republics, according to a report in Russian media. The battle between Russia and the US and NATO will intensify following the referendums in 4 regions of Ukraine. A Beijing-based foreign affairs specialist who wished to remain unnamed warned the Global Times on Sunday that the battle between Russia and the countries of NATO will escalate. The Donbas republics, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia areas began a 5-day vote on joining Russia on Friday. According to media sources, Russia's top diplomat promised during the UNGA that those regions would be under its full protection. According to some experts, Washington hijacked this year's UNGA, the first physical gathering since the pandemic, and turned it into a platform for its anti-Russian campaign. As a result, most European nations missed the chance to interact with Moscow because the Hungarian foreign minister was the only EU foreign minister to meet with Lavrov. According to Hungary Today, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó stated in New York on Thursday night that this week's UNGA provided the best opportunity to begin peace talks regarding Ukraine and Russia. However, no such discussions have so far taken place and are unlikely to so between the parties. Peace is the only answer to all of these issues. Hungary wants peace as quickly as possible, according to Szijjártó, who also noted that no other EU foreign minister has met with the head of Russian diplomacy. According to TASS, Lavrov informed the media that he was interested in meeting with 2 EU nations and 1 NATO nation outside of the UNGA. They requested that these encounters be kept private and not disclosed, to which he replied, "Well, as you wish." After receiving such a reaction, they went off the radar. Wang Yiwei, director of the Institute of International Affairs at the Renmin University of China, told the Global Times on Sunday that during Lavrov's speech, he only singled out the US and criticized its Monroe Doctrine as Washington has been attempting to enlarge its sphere of influence into the Eurasian continent. But according to the Chinese expert, Europe's goals on the Ukraine crisis differ from those of the US. As part of China's plan of divide and rule, Wang stated that in the US, certain strategists do want to split Russia to eliminate such tremendous risk in their eyes, but Europe merely wants to change it. The extensive economic ties between the European and Russian economies, notably Europe's reliance on Russian energy, have contributed to the continent's suffering due to sanctions. To gather ideas from EU member states before writing the next set of sanctions against Moscow, which is anticipated to be published next week, the European Commission set up meetings with senior diplomats on Saturday. Additionally, a vital industry, the production of nuclear energy, is unlikely to be included in the upcoming package, according to the media source. Since there are no indications that the situation will improve, some Chinese analysts think that everyone involved in the Ukraine conflict needs to be ready for the worst-case scenarios and that the US's goal of defeating Russia is crystal evident. It is also rather obvious who Russia is aiming at, who will be willing to compromise when there is a nuclear weapon. The Beijing-based analyst posed the question, speculating that the general dispute will worsen. He argued that serious thought must be given to Russia's overall security,